What's going on, guys? My name is MrDalekJD, and oh my god, today has just been one of the most exciting days in zombies history. Today we're going to be breaking down and analyzing and just nerding out over this incredible Alpha Omega intro cutscene that Treyarch released today. If you want to watch the full thing without me talking over it, there's a link in the description for it. If you've not seen this yet, then you need to go and click that link right now, watch the cutscene, and then come straight back. But there are so many details in here, so much fan service in here that if you aren't excited by seeing this, I don't know if you're human, because this is unbelievable. If you're excited for Alpha Omega to drop, let me know in the comment section and absolutely nuke that thumbs up button for Nuketown. Rather than breaking this down in order of the trailer, I thought we'd focus with what you guys are here for most importantly. We're going to be talking about Dr. Monty and the Shadowman and Nikolai for this portion, because there are so many standout moments in this trailer that we're going to be breaking down, but I just had to talk about the ending here where we see the Great War. And just before this, we get shots of the Shadowman in Shadows of Evil, Dr. Monty in the forest, as well as a retrospective look through of the story from where it really began to now, with Peter McCain pulling that power switch in Verrückt, losing his hand, being hung in Shinonuma, the Ultimus events affecting Misty and Sullinger, as well as the others, and then finally culminating with Ultimus Evil Richtofen causing everything, basically. And it's all gonna lead to the Great War that we see right in front of our faces. It's literally Avengers Endgame epic level of scale, and I cannot wait to see if this is actually going to transform into gameplay. It looks like such a jump from where we are in the story to this, that this could really be some DLC 4 teasers within this intro. But the main premise here throughout the entire story trailer is we're seeing things which the Chronorium is predicting as the future and then completely wiping it, like pressing a reset button on what we were supposed to do because something really big is happening. Dr. Monty comes into the house to the bedroom and said something to Samantha and Eddie which causes them to look very scared and shocked. We've known since Blood of the Dead that Dr. Monty is an evil character, something which we were not expecting, and we don't quite know necessarily how yet. From the numerous ciphers we got in BO3 and Blood of the Dead, we know that Dr. Monty is an evil person. And as this war is raging on, we finally get to see Dr. Monty's true form, because he is a keeper, but how we've seen him from his introduction to now has been a human-like form. But here we see a multitude of different sized keepers, including like Origin-esque style sized keepers, and a weird looking apothecary man with a red scarf. Now who could that be, That is Dr. Monty and his true identity. And who does he look like? He looks exactly like the Shadowman. Why does he look like the Shadowman? Well, it's a little bit complicated. A long time ago, both Dr. Monty and the Shadowman were keepers. They looked like keepers. And then one day there was the War of Agartha, which was a conflict fought before time between the keepers and their brethren, of whom were corrupted by the Dark Aether. The uncorrupted keepers won the war, which banished the corrupted keepers into the Dark Aether. And these keepers would in time evolve into the monstrous demonic creatures known as apothegans. An interesting bit of trivia we knew before this trailer was that Dr. Monty had an unknown role in this war. And here he is clear as day leading the keeper army in the Great War, but he looks like the Shadowman. And just because he looks like the Shadowman doesn't mean that he is an apothecary. But I might be able to explain why he looks like the Shadowman. To explain it, we need to go all the way back in time. And there was a time where Dr. Monty would consider the Shadowman not just a friend, but his very best friend. And if you think of that moment in time, they were both the same race. They were both keepers. The theory I have is that potentially Dr. Monty and the Shadowman are both the same person, but from different realities. And it sounds really far-fetched, but there are crumbs which I feel like both Monty and the Shadowman left in Revelations that helps make this seem a bit more plausible. And there's a moment in the Revelation Wisp where Dr. Monty describes about something happening which isn't related to death, but revolves around a worm being cut in half, and both parts keep on living. What if the same scenario has happened here, where both Dr. Monty and the Shadowman are both part of the same person, but they are both two separate halves, existing with what seems to have set goals of one being good and evil, but actually both are just as bad and good as each other. Because if we look look back at Revelations, Dr. Monty is described by the Shadowman as the Great Dragon, the Beast, Beelzebub, Lucifer, Satan, and the Devil. Just something you'd more associate with the Shadowman as being the evil character. Both of them were originally from the exact same race of ancient keepers. So what if in Revelations, when Dr. Monty mentions about cutting a worm in half, but both parts keep on living, what if that is a figure of speech to literally describe both himself and the Shadowman, and that's why they look so similar? And on Revelations during the Easter egg, both Dr. Monty and the Shadowman are almost saying the exact same thing to our characters, how the opposing person is evil and you shouldn't trust them. But if both characters are saying that about each other, there is no good or evil in this. They are both clearly as evil as each other. And that's why Dr. Monty's true form looks like the Shadowman, because they're two parts of the same person. The second idea we could have here is something which you'd quickly assume the moment you see the image, and that Monty isn't actually a keeper and that he's actually an apothecant. Hence why he looks exactly like the Shadowman. Now that could definitely be plausible, but I feel it's a little less unlikely, because the way the apothecants formed, where they were originally keepers that were corrupted by spending a long time in the dark ether, and the influence of that dark ether corrupted and mutated the way they looked. So the keepers suddenly started looking like weird tentacle creatures, just like the Shadowman's true form. But yet Dr. Monty is identical in that form when it comes to the head and it comes to the hands as well. If he was an apothecant, why would he be leading the keeper army? It just doesn't quite add up. And first theory I mentioned is probably what seems like a more likely explanation, that they somehow two parts of the same person, because Dr. Monty describes him as not just his friend but his best friend, and goes into extreme detail. And if you really wanted to think of it in a sort of childlike manner, you could describe yourself as your own best friend. But either way, both theories are really complicated to explain and to prove, but it's the only plausible ideas I have right now, unless you guys have anything different. Throughout this cutscene as well, we know that Nikolai is incredibly important. He is now the main leader of our Primus crew, and by the sounds of the wordings, he might have to sacrifice his soul in this map. We learn in the Blood of the Dead outro from Primus Richtofen that Nikolai must read the Chronorium, learn of his true calling, and keep his soul, as it will be needed to defeat Dr. Monty. At the end of the cutscene, Nikolai mentions that from this day on, it is his burden to bear. He knows what must be done and who must do it. May they all have mercy on my soul. And that to me sounds like Nikolai is going to have to use his soul. Now, the main thing that points straight away to how this could work, and is probably the only explanation that I have in my head so far, is that we know that a second MPD device existing in Area 51 near Groom Lake, which is obviously Nuketown. And in this intro cutscene, we do see some scientists working at a lab, which to me, I'm assuming, is where the American government are working on this MPD that we learn in the classified radios. They are building a second MPD to gain the power and overthrow Samantha to create new worlds. Seems somehow that they've contained Samantha in their new MPD, the fact that it has 3 device holders rather than 1, before an event turns them into the undead. But we have this MPD here, and the fact that Samantha isn't always in the MPD in this intro cutscene makes me think that the only explanation on how Nikolai can use his soul that isn't it being trapped in the summoning key, because what point would that have, is if his soul entered the MPD. I don't know how that would work. I don't know if it would even make sense, because in one portion of the intro cutscene, we physically see a future event happening, which to me looks like DLC 4 territory of Primus Nikolai, Primus Dempsey, and Primus Takeo, along with Ultimus Richtofen, teleporting to Dr. Monty's house. This is something that we see in one of the Call of Duty Zombie comics loading screens, where we see our characters teleporting from Gorod Krovi and all the way ending up at Dr. Monty's house. This was such a mind-blowing loading screen back in the day, because we couldn't make any sense of it, and it doesn't quite make any sense here because it looks exactly the same, But as we see earlier in the trailer, things have changed in the storyline. There's almost like a reset button that's happened or something along those lines, but things are changing. And what the Chronorium was telling us to do, the guiding path on how we fix this mess, has completely changed. And no longer does it look like Ultimus Richtofen, Primus Takeo, Primus Dempsey, and Primus Nikolai end up at that house. For whatever reason, events have changed. Just like we see right at the start of the intro cutscene, where we see the dark mechanism of Richtofen in suddenly disappear from the Chronorium altogether, like as if it didn't happen. Now, it's intriguing at that part of the cutscene as well that we see what looks like this weapon, which we can find in Der Eisendrache, and a dead body lying there, which to me seems like it is Richtofen's. Now, I'm pretty confident that what happened in the Dark Mechanism still happened in this universe. We're just seeing Richtofen's body on the floor, or something else happened entirely, but whatever. The page Richtofen was reading, telling him to enter that Dark Mechanism, he's done it, and now the Chronorium has completely changed. What they need to do now is completely different, because that history is being wiped out by the Chronorium. It's a hella confusing intro cutscene because it's showing things that we've seen before and how all of our actions throughout this entire Aether story has culminated with what we are doing now, but it's also flashing between events which haven't happened yet but are then not happening because the Chronorium's wiping it out, and ultimately we have the Great War. And this doesn't look like the Great War that involved our Primus crew that jumped in the 1300s. They don't look like they're anywhere in sight here. This is the first original Great War in Agartha, which is so exciting. This video in itself took literally like an hour and a half to come up with, so it made sense, and to speak about everything in a coherent manner without confusing myself even more than I already am. But it seems like Treyarch are super on it with this Aether storyline, and I can't wait to have some of the questions we have in this video answered when we play the map on July 9th. And if you're not excited for this map, then I don't think there's any hope for you in being impressed by the rest of Black Ops 4, but this sounds like the best way they could have ended the season, and these teasers have been absolutely top-notch fantastic. If you've got any other theories or ideas on things you want me to talk about in future videos, please let me know down below in the comment section. If you're enjoyed and you're excited for this map, please let me know by smashing the thumbs up on this video, and make sure you're subscribed by clicking that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my uploads. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you for another video very, very soon.